On the evening of January 31st, 2004, 11-year-old Carly Brucia was walking home after spending the night at her friend's house. It was Super Bowl Sunday, and she wanted to get home in time to watch the game. She told her friend's mom she was allowed to walk home alone. It was only about a mile away and left around 6 p.m. But soon after, her friend's mom called Carly's mother, Susan, just to make sure she knew Carly was walking home alone. Susan was surprised and worried. She never liked her daughter walking anywhere by herself. So she asked her husband and Carly's stepfather, Steve Kanzler, to drive out and pick her up. Steve drove up and down the route Carly usually took, but she was nowhere to be found. He kept driving, hoping he'd just missed her. After more than an hour, he went back home, but Carly still wasn't there. That's when panic set in. Susan and Steve went back out again, calling Carly's name through the car windows. As they searched, they saw a red tow truck drive slowly by them, which struck them as odd. When they reached Carly's friend's house to check if maybe she'd gone back, they noticed the same red truck parked outside. It felt strange, but there was still no sign of Carly. Around 7:30 p.m., Susan made a desperate call to emergency services to report her daughter missing. Authorities quickly began combing the area and issued a public alert for Carly. Family and friends started printing and handing out missing person flyers that night and early the next morning. Meanwhile, police began questioning people. Steve, the stepfather, was looked at closely because his behavior during the search seemed unusual. One person told police that Steve had come by his shop handing out flyers, but also asked if he could buy drugs after all this blew over. Detectives found this strange, but after checking his alibi, which Susan confirmed, they cleared him. Steve did, however, give police another name, Ron Choquette, the man who drove the red tow truck. Ron was dating the mother of Carly's friend, the same house Carly had stayed at. Steve told police that Ron's truck had been driving suspiciously near where Carly vanished. Police questioned Ron, but his coworkers confirmed he'd been at work when Carly disappeared, so he too was ruled out. The next day, officers brought tracking dogs to help search. The dogs followed Carly's scent to Evie's car wash, a place not on her normal route home, but one known as a shortcut. The scent disappeared near the back of the building, but the car wash had security cameras. When the manager checked the footage, what he saw horrified him. On the tape, a man could be seen walking toward a young girl who matched Carly's description. At first, he looked like he was just passing by, but suddenly he stepped toward her, grabbed her arm, and led her away. She looked frightened and unsure what to do. Carly's parents confirmed it was her in the video, but no one recognized the man. He appeared to be a white male with dark hair, tattoos on his forearms, and wearing a work jumpsuit with a name tag. The video quality was poor, so the name couldn't be read. The footage was soon broadcast on TV, and hundreds of tips began pouring in. Then multiple people called, identifying the man as Joseph Smith, a 37-year-old mechanic with a long criminal record. He had past arrests for kidnapping, assault, and false imprisonment, and he was out on parole at the time. Police went to the house where Joseph was staying with friends. At first, he refused to answer the door, saying later that he had been sleeping. When questioned, Joseph claimed he was home watching the Super Bowl that night. He admitted the man in the video looked like him, but denied being near the car wash. Detectives noticed tattoos on his forearms and small cuts and scratches on his hands. When asked what car he had been driving, Joseph said he had borrowed his friend's yellow station wagon that evening, the same kind of car seen in the footage near where Carly was taken. He claimed he only drove it to a marina and back, but later, his friend told police that Joseph had actually driven over 300 miles that night and didn't return until the next morning. Police arrested Joseph for a parole violation when they found drugs in his car. While in custody, one of his friends came forward and told detectives that Joseph had often talked about wanting to hurt women. When Joseph's mother heard about the arrest, she went to his workplace, furious at his coworkers for calling the police. Yet even she said, "If Joe did this, I'll get the truth out of him." By then, the search for Carly had become desperate. Sadly, only days later, her body was discovered, confirming the worst fears of her family and community. Joseph Smith was sentenced to death. However, he died in prison on July 26, 2021, at the age of 55, while awaiting execution on death row. Reports indicate that he died of liver cancer. The CCTV footage of Carly's abduction remains one of the most haunting ever recorded. An innocent walk home turned into a parent's worst nightmare. Noor Muqaddam was the daughter of a Pakistani diplomat. She was a kind and gentle young woman who had grown up between two different worlds, Pakistan and Ireland. Her father's job often took the family to different countries. Noor spent many of her early years in Dublin, Ireland. In Ireland, she went to school, made close friends, and lived a happy childhood. People who knew her described her as warm, friendly, and full of life. She loved fashion and art, and had dreams of creating something beautiful in her life. But when her father's work required the family to move back to Pakistan, Noor had no choice but to leave behind her friends and the life she had grown used to. Moving back to Pakistan was not easy. The culture was very different from what she had known in Ireland. But Noor's family was loving and supportive, and they encouraged her to follow her interests. She started expressing herself through fashion and painting. She was bright, talented, and full of compassion. It was around 2018 when Noor met a man named Zahir Jaffer. He came from a very rich family and had lived abroad for many years in the United States and the United Kingdom. Nobody knows exactly how the two met, but their meeting soon turned into a relationship. On the outside, they looked like a normal couple, but deep down, things were not as they seemed. Zahir had a very dark side. He had been in trouble before, in both the US and the UK, for violent behavior and for harassing women. He had even been deported from the UK after being charged with assault. But Noor didn't know any of this. He had hidden his past from her and everyone around him. Over time, Noor began to see that Zahir was not the man she thought he was. He had a short temper and would often lose control. Sometimes he even became violent. But like many people in such relationships, Noor stayed, perhaps hoping things would change. Their relationship went on for more than 3 years. Friends noticed that Zahir's behavior was toxic and aggressive, but Noor, being gentle and forgiving, continued to see him. Unfortunately, this decision would lead to something truly tragic. On July 18, 2021, Noor left her family home in Islamabad around 9 p.m. She told her family she was going to see Zahir, but she never returned. 2 days passed, and her parents grew deeply worried. Her father and sister tried calling her again and again, but she didn't pick up. Then her mother received a short, frightened voice message from Noor. Soon after that, the family got a strange phone call from Zahir, who claimed he hadn't seen her. That same evening, on July 20th, police received a call about a man acting violently at a house in a wealthy neighborhood. The house belonged to Zahir Jaffer. When police arrived, Zahir tried to attack them with a knife. They overpowered him and entered the house. They discovered a horrifying scene. Noor was found dead. She had been stabbed many times and she had been brutally murdered. A large kitchen knife, covered in blood, was found near her. Through CCTV footage and witness accounts, police pieced together what had happened. Zahir had planned to take Noor abroad with him to New York. He wanted to propose to her, but when Noor refused, he lost control. In his anger, he forced her to stay in his house, locking her inside and not letting her leave. At one point, Noor tried to escape by jumping from a balcony, but Zahir caught her and dragged her back inside. The security guards nearby did nothing to help her. Later that night, he attacked her in his bedroom. Out of rage and a twisted sense of pride, he killed her. It became one of Pakistan's most talked about and heartbreaking cases. In February 2022, the Islamabad Sessions Court sentenced Zahir Jaffer to death for murder, 25 years for and 1 year for abduction. His parents and household staff were initially arrested for complicity, but were later acquitted due to insufficient evidence. The court did not accept Jaffer's defense of mental illness, citing clear premeditation in the crime. His appeals were dismissed, and the acquittals of his parents and staff were maintained. He is currently incarcerated in Adiala Jail, Rawalpindi. He has filed a mercy petition to the President of Pakistan, seeking clemency, and the outcome of this petition is pending. On the night of September 10th, 2021, a strange and horrifying scene was caught on a public webcam in Key West, Florida. A man named Don Williams, a 911 dispatcher from Boston, was watching the live feed from the southernmost point webcam, a popular tourist spot marked by a large concrete buoy. But what he saw on his screen that night was no tourist moment. He saw a woman being attacked. Don thought it was just a couple fooling around near the buoy. But suddenly things changed. The woman stumbled, fell face down, lost her shoes, and ran away while the man pulled up his pants and went in the other direction. Don immediately called 911 to report what he had seen. Only a few minutes later, another 911 call came in. This time from a couple who lived just a block away from the same area. They told the operator that a woman had come running down their street, crying and clearly terrified. The couple said there were 3 or 4 young men, possibly one woman among them, running after her. Police officers rushed to the area. Near the buoy, they found the woman's sandals and underwear. Witnesses nearby said they had seen a man and a woman behind the buoy. One of them said he heard a short scream before the man pulled the woman behind the monument. Then she ran away while he went back to his car, putting his pants on. A short time later, police received another call, this one from the southernmost beach resort. A staff member reported that a woman had walked into the lobby, confused and crying. She told staff she believed she had been assaulted. When police arrived, they found her shaking and breathing heavily. She was taken to the hospital, where doctors found bruises and cuts on her body. The woman could remember parts of her night but had large gaps in her memory. She recalled meeting a man at a bar and later walking with him outside. Police soon discovered who he was, Jorge Calderon Nunez, a 30-year-old man with a history of troubling behavior. Surveillance footage from that night showed her leaving a bar called Jack Flats with Jorge. A witness said she appeared drunk and even threw up on the sidewalk. When she tried to go home alone, Jorge followed her. A disturbing video later found on her phone showed him dragging her into the dark space between 2 buildings and attacking her. During the video, another man's voice appeared. He called himself Calvin and told Jorge to stop. But this man, Calvin Gasag, was not trying to help her. After Jorge assaulted the woman, Calvin offered her a ride. She thought he was rescuing her, but instead, he became her second attacker that same night. Street cameras later showed Calvin helping her into his car and driving toward the same southernmost point seen on the webcam. A little later, the webcam captured him grabbing her, covering her mouth, and dragging her behind the buoy, where he attacked her before she managed to run away again. The same moment Don Williams had seen live from Boston. Police found Calvin Gasag later that night. He claimed that everything had been consensual and said the woman didn't fight like they do in movies. But the video footage and witness statements clearly showed otherwise. A week later, police also located Jorge Calderon Nunez, the first attacker, on a fishing boat. When shown the footage of his assault, he chillingly said, "Perfect." He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, along with additional jail time. Calvin Gasag pleaded no contest to battery, false imprisonment, and tampering with evidence. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, plus 5 years of probation after his release. What started as an ordinary night in Key West turned into a nightmare for one woman, attacked not once, but twice, and witnessed live by people miles away through a simple webcam that captured everything. Marilyn Bergeron was a 24-year-old woman from Quebec, Canada, who vanished under very strange and worrying circumstances in 2008. Her story remains one of the most mysterious missing person cases in the country. Marilyn was born on December 21, 1983, in Chicoutimi, Quebec. Her parents were André and Michel Bergeron. She loved music from a young age and even tried starting a band while in school. Her family later moved to Quebec City, where she continued to study music and take part in related school activities. Everyone described her as a cheerful and energetic girl when she was young. But as she got older, she began spending time with people her parents didn't approve of, which led her into some trouble. After finishing high school, Marilyn studied media arts and technology and later moved to Montreal. There, she worked at Steve's music store and did sound editing for a local TV station. She also began training in finance at Industrial Alliance. Marilyn seemed independent, creative, and full of plans for her future. But in late 2007, something happened that changed her completely. One night, her friend Jonathan Gauthier came to pick her up for a party. When he arrived, Marilyn was sitting in the dark, listening to music, looking upset and distant, very unlike her usual self. At the party, she appeared fine at first, but soon became anxious and nervous for no clear reason. She asked Jonathan to take her home, and when they arrived, she started crying. Jonathan was confused and asked if she had seen a crime or been attacked, but she only said, "You can't even begin to imagine what I've been through," suggesting something terrible had happened. She refused to say more, and Jonathan got the sense that she was afraid and trying to protect him from danger. A few months later, in early 2008, Marilyn told her family she no longer felt safe living alone in Montreal. She wanted to move back home. When her mother asked what was wrong, she said she would explain once she arrived, but she never did. During that week, she seemed very anxious and sad. When her sister asked her what was happening, Marilyn only said, "Is there light at the end of this tunnel?" and cried. She refused to tell anyone what was bothering her. On February 17, 2008, just one day after she had fully moved back home, Marilyn decided to go for a walk around 11 a.m. She took her credit card but left her ID at home. Her mother said Marilyn seemed worried but calm enough to go out. A short while later, CCTV footage captured her at an ATM trying to withdraw $60, but her card was declined. In the video, she kept looking over her shoulder as if she was being watched or followed. She looked scared and restless. A few hours later, at about 4 p.m., Marilyn was seen at a coffee shop where she bought a drink using her credit card. The staff remembered she seemed unhappy and eager to leave. That was the last confirmed sighting of her. She never came home. Her purse and cigarettes were found near the door, and her family quickly reported her missing. Police first thought she had taken her life, but her family strongly disagreed. They believed she was alive and in danger. They handed out flyers, hired private investigators, and even tried to move the case to Montreal police, but their requests were denied. Then in December 2009, almost 2 years later, a couple in Hawkesbury, Ontario, said a young woman knocked on their door at 2 a.m. in the rain. She was wet, shivering, and wearing light clothes. She asked to use their phone and wanted directions to Chamberlain Street. They said she was polite, spoke fluent English, and looked scared. Later, when they saw Marilyn's photo on the news, they were sure it was her, except her hair was blonde. Marilyn had often dyed her hair, so this seemed possible. In the following years, more people claimed to have seen a woman resembling Marilyn in the same Ontario town, but none of these sightings could ever be confirmed. Her family never gave up hope. In 2017, a $30,000 reward was offered for any information about her. Her mother and sister continued to search for answers, believing that Marilyn might still be alive, possibly hiding or living under a new identity for reasons no one knows. Whether she ran away, was being followed, or met someone dangerous, no one knows. Her family only hopes that someday they'll finally find out what really happened to her. It was a cold winter evening on December 9, 2016, in South Ogden, Utah, a small, peaceful town not far from Salt Lake City. Snow covered the ground, and the streets were quiet. Most people were inside, keeping warm. But inside one house on Ogden Avenue, something terrible was about to happen. Inside that home lived Kyle Vankomen, a 24-year-old who shared the place with his brothers and a few close friends. They were friendly with everyone in the neighborhood, especially Kevin Nelson, a kind-hearted 61-year-old man who lived just across the street. Kevin had a big smile, a great sense of humor, and was known for helping anyone who needed it. That night, Kyle's brother Brock and his stepbrother went out for a short errand, planning to be back soon. 3 masked men were already outside, watching the house closely. They wore plastic masks and dark clothes, and they were carrying guns. They waited patiently, studying every move from the shadows. Moments after Brock drove away, the attackers made their move. They crept toward the house, burst through the door, and opened fire. Within minutes, the quiet neighborhood was filled with chaos. When Brock and his stepbrother returned just 10 minutes later, everything was silent. As they walked inside, they were met with a horrifying sight. Kyle had been shot multiple times and was dead. His neighbor and friend Kevin Nelson, who had just dropped by for a quick visit, was also killed. Another man inside the house was found in the backyard, barely alive after being shot in the neck. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Police and emergency teams arrived soon after 8 p.m., sealing off the area. Officers searched every room, every corner, and every yard nearby. They found bullet casings and clear evidence that the shooters had planned this. Almost 9 years later, in October 2025, the murders remain unsolved. The case is now handled by the Weber Metro Cold Case Task Force, which still lists it as an active investigation. Detectives continue to search for leads and say the suspects are still unidentified. Investigators believe someone out there knows the killers and that they may have been connected to people in the area. No arrests have ever been made, and police have not released any new major developments. In the months after the murders, life slowly moved on, but the loss left a deep mark on everyone who knew them. Carlos DeJuan Brown was born in the early 1990s in Charlotte, North Carolina. His problems with the law started when he was very young. In 2007, while still a minor, he was first arrested. Over the years, his crimes grew worse. In 2011, he was arrested for speeding and shoplifting. In 2015, he went to prison for robbery with a dangerous weapon, breaking and entering, and stealing. These crimes were from incidents that happened in 2013 and 2014. Carlos was released from prison in September 2020, but his troubles didn't stop. In early 2021, he was arrested for attacking his sister after allegedly biting her. She later dropped the charges because she was worried about his mental health. The same month, he was arrested again for trespassing and damaging property. In July 2022, he got arrested for disorderly conduct, and in January 2025, he was taken in for misusing the 911 system. Carlos told the police that some man-made material was controlling his body, his eating, walking, and talking. When the police told him they couldn't do anything, he got angry and called 911 again, which led to his arrest. He was released after signing a promise to return to court. By this point, Carlos had been arrested 14 times. In 2014, he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, a serious mental illness that affects how people think, feel, and behave. He was often homeless and stayed in shelters when he could. Now let's look at the other person in this case, Irina Zarutska. Irina was born on May 22, 2002, in Ukraine. She studied art and restoration before moving to the United States with her mother and siblings in August 2022 to escape the war in Ukraine. Irina worked at a pizzeria in Charlotte and went to community college. She wanted to become a veterinary assistant one day. On August 22, 2025, everything changed. Carlos Brown boarded the Lynx Blue Line train in Charlotte without paying for a ticket. He looked upset and was making strange facial expressions, possibly reacting to voices in his head due to schizophrenia. At 9:46 p.m., Irina got on the same train at the East-West Boulevard station after finishing work. She sat in the seat in front of Carlos, listening to music on her earbuds and looking at her phone. She wasn't bothering anyone. Just 4.5 minutes later, Carlos pulled out a folding knife, opened it, and stood up. He grabbed the seat in front of him and suddenly stabbed Irina 3 times. She tried to protect herself, but soon collapsed to the floor. Other passengers saw something happening, but didn't immediately understand what it was. Carlos then tried to get off the train. About 1.5 minutes later, passengers started helping Irina. At 9:52 p.m., Carlos got off the train, taking off his sweatshirt and wrapping it around his injured hand. Police received a call at 9:55 p.m. about a stabbing on the train. They arrested Carlos nearby and found the knife close to the platform. At 10:05 p.m., Irina was pronounced dead. One of the stab wounds had hit her neck. He is now in jail with no bail as he goes through the court process. Carlos's mental illness played a big role in this tragedy. His sister said he struggled to talk normally, couldn't hold a job, and often became aggressive. After the killing, Carlos told her he attacked Irina because he thought she was reading his mind. He also believed the government had planted a chip inside him. A few days before the murder, Carlos visited his mother and asked to stay the night. The next morning, she dropped him off at a homeless shelter. She later told reporters that he shouldn't have been allowed to live freely because he was dangerous and needed treatment. Some believe that Carlos's lawyers might use an insanity defense, saying he didn't understand what he was doing. However, that will be very difficult to prove because Carlos took several actions that showed awareness. He carried a knife, tried to leave after the attack, and threw away the weapon. Gareth Williams. On August 23, 2010, police officer John Gallagher was called to check on a missing man in Pimlico, London, a quiet, expensive area known for its old buildings. The missing man was Gareth Williams, a 31-year-old codebreaker who worked for MI6, the UK's secret intelligence service. He hadn't been seen or heard from in over a week, and his co-workers were worried. Gallagher met a letting agent at Gareth's flat on Alderney Street. The agent opened the door, and Gallagher went inside. At first, everything seemed normal. The flat looked clean and organized. But as he looked closer, he noticed strange things. A woman's wig on a chair, a phone that had been reset with several SIM cards beside it, and the radiators turned up very high, even though it was summer. When Gallagher went into the bathroom, he found something shocking. In the bathtub was a large red duffel bag, tightly zipped and locked with a small padlock. When he tried to lift it, it was very heavy, and a bad smell began to fill the air. A red liquid was dripping from the bag. When the police opened it, they found the body of Gareth Williams inside. His death immediately became a worldwide mystery. Gareth Williams was born in Wales in the late 1970s. From a young age, he was known as a maths genius. He passed his exams much earlier than normal, GCSEs at age 10 and A-levels by 13. He went to university and later earned a PhD in mathematics from Cambridge. Because of his talent, he was hired by GCHQ, the UK's cybersecurity agency, where he helped stop major terrorist plots, including the liquid bomb plan to blow up planes. Later, Gareth joined MI6 as a codebreaker. He moved into a flat near the MI6 headquarters in London. Friends and neighbors said he was quiet, private, and focused on fitness. He had no known romantic relationships and mostly kept to himself. When his body was found, it was already decomposing, meaning he had likely been dead for around 2 weeks. The bag was locked from the outside, but strangely, the key was inside the bag with him. There were no signs of a struggle, no drugs, and no marks of violence. Forensic experts also found DNA from 2 other people on the bag and lock, but they couldn't find out who they belonged to. The flat was tidy, with no signs of forced entry. However, police found expensive women's clothes worth around £15,000, unopened boxes, a wig, and makeup. The door had been double locked from the outside, meaning someone else may have left and locked it behind them. The flat's heating had also been turned up to speed up body decay. Experts said Gareth likely died from suffocation inside the bag. There were no signs he was attacked, which led to theories that he had put himself in the bag, maybe as part of a risky experiment. Others suggested that someone forced him into it. Rumors soon spread about his private life. Some media stories claimed he was involved in bondage or strange secret practices, but most of this turned out to be false or exaggerated. His family said these rumors were hurtful and untrue. Still, no one could explain how he could have locked himself inside the bag. Even trained experts failed to do it in over 300 attempts. Police later looked for a mysterious couple who had visited Gareth's building weeks before his death. They said they had keys to his flat and were visiting someone named Pier Paolo, but they were never found. During an inquest, it was revealed that MI6 took a whole week to report Gareth missing, even though his flat was only a few minutes from their office. This raised questions about a possible cover-up. CCTV footage later helped police piece together Gareth Williams' final days. Cameras showed him on August 14, 2010, just 9 days before his body was found, calmly shopping and walking through Holland Park tube station. He looked relaxed and was carrying a shopping bag, showing no signs of fear or trouble. This was the last confirmed sighting of him alive. Some believe Gareth's death was linked to his secret intelligence work, and that he may have been killed because of something he discovered. Coroners said Gareth Williams was probably unlawfully killed, but no one was ever charged, and how he ended up in the locked bag remains one of Britain's strangest unsolved mysteries. In December 2009, a 30-year-old man named Stephen Kocher disappeared in a way that left everyone confused. His case has remained one of the strangest mysteries to ever come out of Nevada. Stephen was a kind and religious man from Utah. He grew up in Texas and was raised in a loving Mormon family. He was known for being honest, friendly, and active in his church. He had even spent time as a missionary in Brazil, helping people and organizing charity events. Stephen had no criminal record, no problems with alcohol or drugs, and was deeply close to his family. However, after the 2008 financial crisis, he lost his job and had been struggling to find new work. On December 13, 2009, Stephen's car, a white Chevrolet Cavalier, was found parked on a quiet street in Henderson, Nevada, a suburb near Las Vegas. It was discovered near a retirement community, a place Stephen had no known reason to visit. The car was locked and in good condition, with no sign of damage or a struggle. Inside were personal belongings and Christmas gifts, suggesting he had plans to return home. CCTV footage showed Stephen arriving in that neighborhood just before noon on December 13. He parked the car, stepped out neatly dressed, and walked up the street holding what looked like some papers or a folder. After that, he disappeared from view. A few minutes later, another camera caught a brief reflection of him walking out of the neighborhood, but that was the last confirmed sighting of him. Stephen's phone records later showed some strange movements. For 2 days after he vanished, his phone remained active, pinging off cell towers in different locations heading north from where his car was found. The first signal appeared 5 hours after he parked his car. The phone was picked up again a few miles away 2 hours later, and the next morning another signal came from near US Route 93 and Russell Road. Then it stopped. No one knows if Stephen was on foot or in a car at that time. During this period, Stephen's phone was used to check a voicemail and open a text message from his landlord, but there were no calls or messages sent out by him. After 2 days, the phone battery finally died, and it never connected again. Police searched everywhere, around the area where his car was found and near the final phone signal, but there was no sign of Stephen. There was no CCTV footage, no evidence of foul play, and no clear clue about what happened. His bank account showed no suspicious activity, and there were no signs that he planned to run away or harm himself. What made things even stranger was that, in the days before he vanished, Stephen had taken long road trips across Utah and Nevada, driving over 1,000 miles for no clear reason. He visited several random places, but none of them had any obvious connection to his life. His family said they had no idea why he would be traveling like that, especially since he was low on money. On one of those days, Stephen had lunch with the family of an old girlfriend, though she wasn't home at the time. When they asked where he was going next, he told them he was heading to Sacramento to visit family. But later that day, in a call to his mother, he said he was looking into a job opportunity. These conflicting answers only made things more confusing. Despite this, everyone he spoke to said he seemed calm, happy, and normal, not like someone who was in trouble. Investigators searched his computer, phone, and diary but found nothing unusual. His mother believed Stephen might have gone to Las Vegas to find work, explaining why he was dressed neatly when last seen. However, police found no record of job interviews or applications in the area. Some theories later connected Stephen's case to another high-profile disappearance that happened just a week earlier, that of Susan Powell, a woman from Utah. Online rumors claimed Stephen and Susan had been romantically involved and ran away together, but police found no proof that the two had ever even met. It's possible that he was the victim of an accident or a crime, but no evidence has ever surfaced. Others believe he may have chosen to disappear on purpose. What makes Stephen's case so haunting is how much data there was: phone signals, CCTV, and travel records, yet none of it helped solve the mystery. It's as if he simply vanished into thin air after walking out of that neighborhood in Henderson. Years later, his family still hopes for answers. Whether Stephen is alive somewhere or not, they just want closure. As Las Vegas continues to grow and new construction expands into the desert, maybe someday something, a personal item, a piece of evidence, or even his remains, will finally be found to explain how such a kind and promising man could disappear without a trace. On the morning of February 13, 2017, in a quiet area near Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, a man named Pastor Raymond Koh left his home to deliver food to a friend. It was a normal, peaceful morning with clear skies and light traffic. But before the day was over, Raymond Koh would vanish without a trace. Raymond Koh was 62 years old. He wasn't a politician or a businessman. He was a Christian pastor, a husband, a father, and someone known for helping people in need. He spent most of his life serving poor families, single mothers, people with HIV, and those struggling with addiction. He also founded a small charity that focused on kindness and community work. However, in Malaysia, Islam is the state religion, and trying to convert Muslims to another faith is illegal. Even though Raymond's goal was simply to help people, some believed he was secretly trying to convert Muslims. Police from the Islamic Religious Department raided one of his charity dinners, accusing him of preaching Christianity to Muslims. Raymond denied it, but soon after, he started receiving threats. He was sent envelopes filled with white powder and even received 2 bullets in the mail. He didn't stop, and 6 years later, something terrible happened. CCTV footage from February 13th shows exactly what happened that morning. Raymond was driving his silver Honda Accord when several cars suddenly surrounded him. Masked men jumped out and blocked the road. Some controlled traffic while another car filmed the whole scene. Within 40 seconds, they forced Raymond and his car away. After that, neither he nor his vehicle was ever seen again. Shockingly, the police did not react quickly. They didn't call for public help or launch an urgent search. Instead, they began questioning Raymond's wife, Susanna, about his religious work, even asking her in the middle of the night if her husband had been converting Muslims. Susanna started to believe that instead of looking for her husband, the police were trying to make him disappear completely. Then, more people vanished in similar ways. Just a few months after Raymond's disappearance, a Muslim activist named Amri Che Mat also went missing. In March 2017, a Christian couple, Joshua and Ruth Hilmy, disappeared as well. All of them had one thing in common: they were involved in interfaith work, bringing together people from different religions. In 2019, the Malaysian Human Rights Commission held an official inquiry into Raymond's case. They concluded that Raymond Koh was the victim of a forced disappearance, and that the people behind it were not criminals or extremists, but members of the Royal Malaysian Police themselves. The abduction had been planned and carried out by a special branch of the police with military precision. Despite this serious finding, no one was ever charged. The government stayed silent. One of the officers suspected of being involved, Safwan Bahari, later disappeared as well. Susanna refused to give up. She became a strong voice for justice, speaking at international events and sharing her husband's story around the world. In 2020, she was recognized by the U.S. State Department as one of the International Women of Courage. In 2024, she filed another case against the Malaysian government, demanding the full truth about what happened. His car was never found and his body has never been discovered. There is no grave, no goodbye, only questions, pain, and silence. Kongsberg attack. In October 2021, a deadly bow and arrow attack shocked the quiet town of Kongsberg in Norway. The attacker was a 37-year-old Danish man who had been living in the area. Using a bow and arrows, he killed 5 people and injured 2 others, including an off-duty police officer. The attack began inside a small supermarket on the west side of town. Witnesses said people ran for their lives as the man moved through the area. Police were alerted around 6:13 p.m., and they managed to arrest him about half an hour later, at 6:47 p.m. after a short confrontation. Authorities later revealed that the attacks took place across several locations in the town, not just inside the store. Roads were blocked off, and residents were told to stay inside as police searched for the suspect. Norway's acting prime minister at the time called the attack horrifying. It happened just one day before a new government was set to take power after national elections, where the Labour Party defeated the ruling Conservative Party. In 2022, the attacker admitted to the killings in court. However, doctors found that he was suffering from serious mental illness. Because of this, he was sentenced to compulsory psychiatric care instead of prison. Officials said the attack was not linked to terrorism, but was the result of his mental health problems. As of 2025, he remains under strict psychiatric supervision in a secure mental health facility. The tragedy left the people of Kongsberg deeply shaken and reminded many of Norway's worst mass killing in modern history, the 2011 attacks by far-right extremist Anders Breivik, who killed 77 people, most of them teenagers from the Labour Party's youth camp on Toya Island. Lisa Dorian. Lisa Dorian was born on June 12, 1979, in Bangor, County Down, Northern Ireland. She was the oldest of 4 sisters and came from a close, loving family. Her parents, Pat and John Dorian, described her as bright, kind, and full of life. She loved being around people, enjoyed laughing, and always had a positive energy that made others happy. Lisa worked as a shop assistant and had plans for her future. She had even talked about moving to Spain to start a new life. Before she went missing, she had been in an accident and was waiting for a £60,000 payout. Life seemed full of hope for her. However, about 6 weeks before she disappeared, Lisa broke up with her boyfriend, Jimmy Mills. Her family noticed that after the breakup, she started acting differently. She began spending time with new people in the Ballyhalbert area. Her family felt these new friends were a bad influence, especially because Lisa was naturally outgoing and trusting. On the night of February 27, 2005, Lisa went to a party at the home of a woman named Naomi Drysdale. Later that night, she left for another party at Ballyhalbert Caravan Park. The caravan park was quiet at that time of year, since it was still winter, but a few people were there, drinking and using drugs. Lisa was among them. One of the men at the party was Mark Lovett, who worked as the park's groundskeeper. CCTV footage from that night later became an important part of the investigation. Cameras at the caravan park's gate showed cars arriving and leaving around the time Lisa was believed to have gone missing. Police confirmed that Lisa was last seen on CCTV entering the park shortly before midnight, but there was no footage of her leaving. That discovery strengthened the belief that something serious had happened inside the park. Officers also reviewed CCTV from nearby petrol stations and roads leading in and out of Ballyhalbert to see if anyone had tried to move a body or evidence after the party. Witnesses said everyone was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, which made their memories unreliable. One sober person told police that Lisa and Mark seemed to be hallucinating. Around 1:15 a.m., this witness called Mark to check if they were okay. Mark spoke strangely and hung up suddenly. Later, Mark told police that around 5:45 a.m., he and Lisa ran out of the caravan after seeing flashing lights and hearing strange noises. He claimed they became separated in the dark and never found each other again. He said he tried to call her phone, but she didn't answer. Police later learned that Mark had also called Lisa's ex-boyfriend around 5 a.m., asking if he knew where she was. They searched the caravan and found Lisa's handbag and some of her belongings inside, but there were no signs of blood or a struggle. CCTV footage from nearby businesses helped confirm the movements of some of the party guests, but there was still a gap in the timeline that no one could explain, the hours between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. when Lisa vanished. Still, when days passed and Lisa didn't contact her family, everyone knew something was wrong. She always kept in touch and had never disappeared before. The search for Lisa grew quickly. Police officers, divers, and volunteers looked across the Ards Peninsula, on land, in the air, and underwater. Her family went to the media, begging for any information. They pleaded with Lisa directly, saying that if she was out there, she could come home, no questions asked. But no one came forward, and no trace of Lisa was found. The Loyalist Volunteer Force, a small Northern Irish paramilitary group, had written messages suggesting they were involved in Lisa's death. Some people even claimed that rival groups like the Ulster Volunteer Force and the Red Hand Commando had started their own investigations. These groups often fought each other and were known for violence. Lisa's family said they were willing to talk to anyone who could help, even members of these groups, as long as there was no violence. But the police warned that this kind of interference made things worse. In April 2005, Lisa's family offered a £10,000 reward for any information that could help find her. Police believed her body might have been hidden in or near water. Unfortunately, nothing useful came from that search. In 2012, police used new forensic tools to search farmland near Comber, County Down, looking for a car they thought could be linked to her disappearance. Again, nothing was found. Then in 2015, a man named Jimmy Seals, who was already in prison for murder, claimed he knew what happened. He told a newspaper that Lisa had been killed and buried inside a sealed container at an illegal landfill site near Ballygowan. Police checked into his claim, but it didn't lead anywhere. Over the following years, searches continued. In 2019, investigators once again combed parts of the Ards Peninsula, hoping to finally find her remains. As recently as 2024, police reviewed all the original CCTV footage using new digital tools. They said that while the footage helped confirm who entered and left the park, it still did not reveal what truly happened to Lisa. In December 2015, just after Christmas, Lisa's mother, Pat Dorian, died of a heart attack. Her family said she had never been the same since Lisa went missing. Today, 20 years later, Lisa's sisters and father still fight for answers. They keep her memory alive and continue to ask anyone who knows something, no matter how small, to come forward. Her family still hopes that one day, the truth will finally be known and Lisa can be brought home. Lola Daviet was born in 2010 in Paris, France. She lived with her parents, Delphine and Joan Daviet, and her brother on Manon Street in the 19th district of Paris. Her parents worked as building caretakers, and their neighborhood was considered safe. The family lived a quiet and happy life. On Friday, October 14, 2022, 12-year-old Lola went to her nearby school, which was only a few minutes from home. She attended classes as usual and left for home in the afternoon. Normally, she would be home right after school, but that day, she didn't arrive. Her parents started to worry when the minutes turned into hours. Lola never stayed out without telling them, so they knew something was wrong. After waiting for about an hour, they called the police and began checking the building's security cameras. What they saw shocked them. The footage showed Lola returning home after school. A young woman, around 20 years old, was walking beside her. The woman seemed to be talking to Lola and gesturing for her to come closer. Lola looked uncomfortable, as if she didn't want to be there. Her parents immediately feared that something bad had happened. Delphine, Lola's mother, quickly posted an alert on Facebook with a photo and description of the woman. She asked people to help find her daughter. The post spread fast, and many people in Paris began searching for Lola. Later that night, around 11:20 p.m., a woman walking near the building noticed a large brown suitcase left in a courtyard. Curious, she opened it and found something horrifying inside. It was the body of young Lola. She had been tied up, hurt badly, and her body had strange markings. The police arrived quickly and confirmed the terrible news. An investigation began right away. Reviewing the building's cameras again, police saw the same woman who had been with Lola earlier, this time carrying the same suitcase where the girl's body was later found. The suspect was identified as Dabia B., a 24-year-old woman from Algeria who had come to France in 2016 as a student. She no longer had a legal residence permit, and had recently been ordered to leave the country. She had no job or home, and often stayed with friends or her sister, who lived in the same building as Lola's family. Police soon arrested Dabia. Her sister told investigators that Dabia had been acting strangely for months and seemed to have mental problems. During questioning, Dabia confessed to the crime, describing what she had done in disturbing detail. She said she had convinced Lola to come with her to her sister's apartment. There, she attacked the girl and later hid her body in the suitcase. Her motive, she claimed, was revenge. She had argued with Lola's mother a week earlier because she wanted free access to the building, which was not allowed. However, later on, Dabia changed her story. She said her confession was only a dream and that she didn't hurt Lola. At times, she claimed a man or even a ghost was responsible. Police said she showed no emotion during questioning and didn't seem to feel any regret. Several other people were arrested during the investigation, including Dabia's sister, but most were later released. Only one man, who was believed to have helped move the suitcase, remained in custody. Lola's funeral took place on October 24, 2022, in northern France. Thousands of people attended to pay their respects. Her parents stayed quiet and asked for privacy. The whole country mourned the loss of the young girl. Renu Agarwal. On the evening of September 10th, around 5 p.m., two young men were seen on the lift CCTV of Swan Lake Apartments in Hyderabad. They looked calm and normal, chatting casually as one of them carried a large travel bag. No one could have guessed that inside that bag was evidence of a horrible crime they had just committed. The apartment belonged to Renu Agarwal and her husband Rakesh Agarwal. Rakesh ran a steel business, and she took care of their home and family. They had two children, a 26-year-old son, Shubham, who worked with his father, and a 22-year-old daughter, Tamana, who studied in another state. Life was peaceful and happy for the Agarwal family. That evening, Rakesh and Shubham returned home from their shop at about 7 p.m. They rang the doorbell several times, but no one opened the door. Rakesh tried calling Renu, but she didn't answer, something that had never happened before. Worried, he asked a plumber from the building maintenance team to check the balcony door. Luckily, it was unlocked. The plumber climbed in and found Renu lying on the floor. Thinking she had fainted, he ran to open the main door from inside. As soon as Rakesh and Shubham entered and turned on the lights, they froze in shock. Renu was lying in a pool of blood on the floor. The scene was horrifying. They screamed in disbelief, and soon neighbors rushed in. The sight was so terrible that everyone was terrified. Rakesh quickly called the police. Since the murder happened inside a high-security luxury society, the police arrived within 10 minutes with officers, a dog squad, and forensic experts. What they saw was gruesome. Renu's hands and feet were tied with rope. The furniture was overturned, the cupboards were open, and blood was everywhere, even on the sofa. A pressure cooker covered in blood lay nearby. It was clear that whoever killed her had done it with great anger. Renu's body was sent for post-mortem. The report showed over 40 injuries from a knife and scissors, along with several blunt force wounds. Her head had been smashed with the cooker, and her throat cut. She had died between 3 and 5 p.m., meaning that when Rakesh called her at 5, she was already gone. Police began checking CCTV footage and questioning the guards and neighbors. In the footage, two men were seen leaving Renu's flat at 5:05 p.m., one carrying a travel bag. They took the lift down and exited through the basement on a scooter. When police showed the video to Rakesh, he immediately recognized one of them, Harsh, the new cook they had hired only 10 days earlier. The other man was Roshan, the servant of a family living on the 14th floor, who had worked there for almost a year and was trusted by everyone. Both men were from Ranchi, Jharkhand, and had been sent by a domestic help agency based in Kolkata. Rakesh also reported that jewelry, cash, and other valuables were missing from the house. Police realized that the travel bag likely contained the stolen items. They checked all CCTV cameras on nearby roads and highways and circulated the scooter's number. They also contacted the agency owner, who confirmed both men's identities and hometown. Police formed 5 teams. 3 watched bus and railway stations while 2 went to Ranchi. Soon they found the scooter abandoned in Madhapur. The police released the suspect's photos and lift footage on social media. The next day, a taxi company owner called the police. He said one of his drivers had dropped the 2 men from Secunderabad to Ranchi on the night of September 10th. Using the driver's phone records and digital payment trail, police traced their location. On September 12, 2025, they arrested both Harsh and Roshan from Roshan's cousin Raju Verma's house in Ranchi. Raju was also taken into custody for sheltering them. During questioning, the truth came out. Reenu Agarwal had recently undergone surgery and was looking for a cook. She asked her neighbor Ria Agarwal for help. Ria's housekeeper was Roshan, who worked well and was trusted. Ria recommended Harsh, another worker from the same agency. Harsh joined Renu's house on August 31st as a cook. He was amazed by the luxury of the apartment. One day he saw a locker and expensive watches in the bedroom. Greed entered his mind. On September 8th, he met Roshan and told him about the valuables. Together, they planned to rob the house on September 10th. That day, after the maid left, Harsh called Roshan to come over. At 4 p.m., while Renu was busy with chores, the 2 suddenly attacked her with the pressure cooker. She fell unconscious. They tied her hands and feet and began stealing valuables. When they found the digital locker, they tried to force her to reveal the password. What followed was pure cruelty. Jong Shin. In 2002, a young South Korean student named Jong Shin was stabbed to death while walking home in Bournemouth, England. Not long after, a man named Omar Benguit was arrested and charged with her murder. From the very beginning, Omar said he was innocent. He had a long criminal record, about 60 offenses, and had struggled with drug addiction. The main witness against him told police that she saw Omar covered in blood after the attack. She claimed she had driven him and 2 other men to a crack house where he cleaned himself up. Because of her story, Omar was found guilty and sent to prison in 2005. He has now spent over 20 years behind bars. But he has never confessed, saying he would rather die in prison than admit to a crime he did not commit. Journalists and lawyers discovered that there was no CCTV or forensic evidence linking Omar to Oki's murder. The entire case relied on the word of BB, and her story had many problems. BB was a former heroin addict who had a history of lying to the police. Several other witnesses later said they were pressured by police to give false statements against Omar. Some even admitted they had lied in court because they were scared or wanted lighter punishment in their own cases. One woman, Beverly McNeely, said police forced her to lie about a bag of clothes found in a river. She said officers wanted her to claim the clothes belonged to Omar, even though there was no proof. Another witness, Leanne Myers, said the police made her change her description of a knife so it matched the murder weapon. Leanne later said, "They wrote out what they wanted me to say, and I just did it." Omar's sister, Ami Benguit, has fought for years to prove her brother's innocence. Because of the case, she lost her home and faced judgment from neighbors. Amy gathered boxes of old court papers and evidence, hoping to find something that could clear Omar's name. She also found CCTV footage from a nightclub showing Omar around 10 p.m. on the night Oki was killed. Later, new footage from a different street around 3:15 a.m. showed a man who looked very similar to Omar. If that man really was Omar, it could prove he wasn't at the crack house, as Bibi claimed, giving him an alibi for the murder. With the help of journalists and lawyers, Amy submitted this new evidence to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, CCRC. In 2024, the CCRC confirmed that it had found new evidence not available at the time of the trial. This evidence could affect the reliability of the main witness and might even point to a possible alternative suspect. The CCRC said there was a real possibility that the Court of Appeal could find Omar's conviction unsafe, and the case is now under review again. Omar's lawyer, Des Jensen, continues to believe this was a serious miscarriage of justice. Dorset police still say they handled the investigation properly. They point out that the case has been reviewed several times, and that Omar's earlier appeals were rejected by judges in 2005 and 2014. The police added that if the courts or the CCRC direct them to reopen the investigation, they will do so. For now, Omar remains in prison, still claiming he is innocent. His family and supporters are hoping that the CCRC review will finally lead to a new appeal and possibly clear his name. More than 20 years after Oki's tragic death, both families continue to wait for the truth and for real justice to be done.